In a distant empire, where stars were catalogued like jewels and entire civilizations bowed to a single throne, marriage was not romance, it was survival. Royal bloodlines were not continued through ceremony or affection, but through something far more dangerous: the linking. It was a sacred psychic ritual, older than most recorded history, where two minds were bound together in perfect resonance. Thoughts, emotions, memories, nothing remained hidden. For most, it was an honor. For some, it was power. For her, it was a curse. The blind royal princess of the empire had never seen the stars she ruled over. Not with eyes, at least. But where her vision failed, her mind expanded into something vast and overwhelming. She did not see people, she experienced them. Their thoughts crashed into her like storms, their emotions burned through her like fire, and their intentions were always laid bare. And that was the problem. The first noble who attempted to link with her had stepped forward confidently, dressed in ceremonial armor and arrogance. The moment their hands touched, the ritual began. He collapsed within seconds. Not gracefully, not quietly. He screamed. Loud, panicked, unfiltered terror, clutching his head as if trying to hold himself together. Later, the healers would say his mind had not been strong enough, that he simply couldn't withstand the depth of her consciousness. The second lasted longer. A full 12 seconds. Long enough to start laughing uncontrollably before passing out cold, his brain overwhelmed by sensations he couldn't comprehend. He would later wake up unable to stop reciting prime numbers for 3 straight hours. The third refused to speak afterward. The fourth tried to propose anyway, right before fainting mid-sentence. After that, the tone shifted. What was once seen as a rare and powerful gift became something whispered about in quiet corners of the palace. Advisors stopped using words like unique and started using words like unstable. Suitors still came, of course. Politics demanded it, but none of them stepped forward with the same confidence. Because everyone knew how it would end. Failure. Embarrassment. Or worse. The court began calling her things they thought she couldn't hear. Unlinkable. A risk to the bloodline. A royal liability. They were careful with their voices. Careful with their posture. Careful with their thoughts. But not careful enough. She heard everything. Every flicker of doubt. Every hidden fear. Every polite lie wrapped in flattery. It was exhausting, being surrounded by minds that tried so desperately to hide themselves while knowing she could feel it all anyway. And beneath all of that power was something painfully simple. She was alone. She did not crave the throne. She did not dream of control or dominance. What she wanted, what she had always wanted, was something so small it felt almost absurd. Silence. Not the absence of sound, but the absence of expectation. A mind that didn't feel like a performance. A presence that didn't try to shape itself into something acceptable. Someone real. But in an empire built on perfection, real was the rarest thing of all. That was why the final ceremony had been arranged. One last attempt. One last chance to prove she could form a stable link. Representatives from dozens of systems gathered in the grand hall, their forms as varied as the stars themselves. Tall, elegant, armored, radiant. Every one of them powerful. Every one of them carefully trained. And every one of them afraid. The ritual platform stood at the center, polished to a mirror sheen, reflecting the tension in the room like a silent accusation. Advisors whispered. Nobles watched. Guards stood perfectly still, as if movement itself might trigger disaster. She stood at the center of it all, calm and composed, her expression unreadable. Waiting. Another name was called. Another suitor stepped forward. Another failure. This one didn't even make contact. He hesitated just before reaching her, his thoughts spiraling into panic so loudly that she could feel it without touching him. His hand trembled, then pulled back entirely. "I withdraw," he said, voice tight. Murmurs spread instantly. The ceremony was collapsing. Again. That was when the human was announced. At first, no one reacted. The name meant very little in a court filled with ancient species and interstellar dynasties. Humans were new, unrefined, barely understood. Then he stepped forward. And the reaction changed. He didn't look like a conqueror. He didn't move like royalty. There was no polished elegance, no carefully constructed presence. If anything, he looked confused, like he had walked into the wrong room and was too awkward to leave, which, in a way, wasn't far from the truth. He had signed up as part of a diplomatic exchange program, something about cultural integration and interspecies cooperation. There had been forms, a lot of forms, most of which he hadn't fully read. He was now realizing that might have been a mistake. His thoughts were aloud, not in the controlled, refined way the others had been, not shaped or filtered or restrained. They jumped from one idea to another without warning, colliding into each other in a chaotic mess of observations, worries, and completely unrelated nonsense. He wondered if he was standing correctly. He wondered if everyone could tell he was nervous. He wondered briefly what alien food tasted like, then immediately regretted that thought. The princess felt all of it, and for the first time in a very, very long time, she paused. Because it wasn't overwhelming in the way she expected. It wasn't sharp or invasive or suffocating. It was messy, unpredictable, strangely soft. The court, meanwhile, watched in growing disbelief as the human continued forward, clearly unaware of the weight of what he was about to do. An advisor leaned toward another. "He won't last a second." "Less," the other replied. "He doesn't even know how to shield his mind." "That might make it worse." The human reached the platform, hesitated, looked at her. Well, not quite looked. More like tried to figure out where to look. He said, very eloquently. Silence answered him. He swallowed. Then, with absolutely no idea what he was truly stepping into, he reached out and took her hand. And across the entire hall, every mind braced for the inevitable collapse. The moment their hands touched, the ritual awakened. It didn't begin with sound or light, at least not in any way the court could perceive. To them, it was stillness. Two figures standing in perfect silence, fingers interlocked, the air itself holding its breath. But inside, everything detonated. The princess felt it first. Not the sharp, piercing flood she had come to expect from other minds, not the overwhelming surge that tore through her senses like a storm, but something else entirely. Something chaotic. It hit her like 1,000 doors opening at once. A flash of color that wasn't really color, more like an idea of color, badly explained. A half-formed memory of running somewhere as a child. The sudden, urgent thought of food. Not just any food, something fried, something greasy, something entirely inappropriate for a sacred ceremony. Then another thought crashed into it. Wait, am I doing this right? Oh no, I'm definitely not doing this right. What if I mess this up? I'm messing this up. Why did I sign up for this? Then, focus. Be serious. This is important. This is. Immediately interrupted by, why is everyone staring? Are they always this intense? Do aliens blink? What if they don't blink? That's kind of terrifying. The princess froze. Not physically. Mentally. Because this was nothing like the others. There was no structure. No discipline. No careful layering of thought designed to impress or conceal. His mind didn't flow, it collided. Ideas tripped over each other. Emotions spiked and dropped without warning, and beneath all of it was a constant, unfiltered stream of raw, honest existence. It should have been unbearable. It wasn't. It was fascinating. Another wave hit her. A memory, embarrassing, vivid, painfully human. He was younger, slipping in front of others, the sharp sting of humiliation, the desperate attempt to laugh it off like it didn't matter. Then, why am I thinking about that right now? Stop.
Stop thinking about that.
This is not the time. Too late. She felt it all. And for a split second, she didn't know how to respond. This wasn't pain. This wasn't pressure. This was noise. But not the kind that crushed her. The kind that filled space. The kind that didn't demand control. The kind that simply existed. Outside, the court leaned forward. They were waiting for the signs. The collapse. The scream. The inevitable failure that had defined every attempt before this. Seconds passed. Then more.
10.
15. Someone shifted uncomfortably. This is longer than usual, a noble whispered. Something's wrong, another replied. They were right. Something was very, very wrong. Because at the center of the ritual platform, the blind princess, the one who had reduced trained minds to silence, suddenly laughed. It wasn't subtle. It wasn't polite. It was sharp, unexpected, and completely out of place. The entire hall froze. The human's thoughts spiked instantly. Oh no. Oh no 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 no. I broke her. I actually broke her. That's it, I'm dead. This is how I die. On an alien stage, holding hands, accidentally committing psychic murder? Is that a thing? That feels like a thing. Another laugh escaped her. Louder this time. She tightened her grip on his hand. Inside the link, his thoughts spiraled harder. Why is she laughing? Why is she laughing? Is this bad? This feels bad. This definitely feels bad. Should I pull away? No, don't pull away. That might be offensive. Or illegal. Is it illegal? Oh no. What if it's illegal? And then, a completely unrelated thought burst through. I wonder if aliens have something like noodles. That would be nice right now. The princess doubled over slightly, laughter breaking through her composure in a way the court had never seen before. This wasn't how the ritual was supposed to look. The advisors exchanged alarmed glances. Terminate the link. One hissed under their breath. We can't, another replied. She hasn't signaled distress. Distress? She's laughing. That's exactly the problem. Inside the connection, she was beginning to understand. It wasn't just chaos. There was a rhythm to it. A strange, unpredictable rhythm, but one that never settled long enough to overwhelm her. Every intense thought was immediately disrupted by something softer, something ridiculous, something completely harmless. Where other minds pressed in on her, heavy and structured, his scattered. And in scattering, it gave her space. For the first time in her life, she wasn't drowning in someone else's presence. She was floating through it. She leaned deeper into the link. The human felt it immediately. Okay, that's new. That's definitely new. Is she leaning in? Why is she leaning in? I don't know what that means. I don't know what any of this means. Another memory surfaced, this one quieter. Sitting alone, thinking, wondering if he was ever going to matter to anyone in any meaningful way. The tone shifted, just slightly, and she felt it, the honesty beneath the chaos, the vulnerability hidden between the noise. He wasn't trying to impress her. He wasn't trying to control what she saw. He couldn't. And because of that, everything she experienced was real. Her laughter softened. Not gone, but different now. Warmer. The court noticed. That doesn't look like failure, someone whispered. No, another replied, voice tight with disbelief. It doesn't. The human swallowed hard. Okay. She's still holding my hand. That's probably good. Or maybe it's bad. I don't know. I really don't know. Why didn't anyone explain this better? Then, without warning. Also, her hand is actually really nice to hold.
Wait. Why did I think that? Don't think that.
Definitely don't think that. Too late. The princess felt it. And for a moment, everything stilled. Not because the chaos stopped, but because she focused on that one thought. Simple. Unfiltered. Unforced. And something in her chest, something she had buried under years of pressure and isolation, shifted. Outside, the tension reached its peak. End it, an advisor urged quietly. Before something irreversible happens. But it was already too late for that. Because instead of pulling away, the princess tightened her grip once more. And for the first time in the history of the ritual, she refused to let go. No one in the hall moved at first. They were waiting for correction, for the ritual to stabilize into something recognizable, or collapse into the familiar disaster they understood. But neither happened. The two of them simply remained there, still connected, still holding hands, as if the rules everyone had relied on no longer applied. The human was the first to break the silence. Is this still part of it? He asked carefully, not entirely sure who he was supposed to be asking. No one answered. Because no one knew. The princess tilted her head slightly, her attention no longer scattered across the court, no longer overwhelmed by the noise of dozens of guarded minds. Everything else had faded into the background. He hadn't. His presence was still there, loud, chaotic, impossible to ignore, but it wasn't suffocating. It didn't crush her senses. It shifted constantly, like a storm that never settled long enough to trap her inside it. She tightened her fingers, just slightly. The human felt it instantly.
Okay. Still holding hands.
Definitely, still holding hands. This is probably important. Don't panic. Just don't panic. You're doing fine. You're absolutely not doing fine. She spoke, her voice calm in a way that contrasted sharply with the storm she was experiencing through him. You are not in pain. It wasn't a question. He blinked. No? Should I be? A ripple moved through the court. That alone was wrong. He should have been overwhelmed by now, struggling to even stand, let alone answer casually. She continued, softer now. You are not trying to shield your thoughts. He let out a small, awkward laugh. I don't really know how to do that. That earned another reaction, quieter, but sharper. Several nobles exchanged looks that bordered on disbelief.
He didn't know how.
He wasn't trained. He wasn't prepared. And yet he was still standing. Inside the link, his thoughts flared again. Wait, should I know how to do that? Oh no. Was that something I was supposed to learn beforehand? There were instructions, weren't there? I definitely skipped something important. This is bad. This is very bad. Her lips curved slightly. You are thinking too loudly. He froze. You can hear that? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she let the connection deepen. Not forcefully, not like before, but gently. She followed the current of his thoughts as they shifted, watching the way one idea dissolved into another without structure, without intent. And then she spoke again. You are concerned that you have made a mistake. His face changed instantly.
Oh,
that's exactly what I was thinking. A pause. That's a little terrifying.
why?
Because I didn't say it out loud. Another pause. And now I'm thinking about the fact that you know I didn't say it out loud, which somehow makes it worse. The princess let out a quiet breath that almost resembled a laugh again. Around them, the court had gone completely still. This was no longer just unusual. This was unprecedented. An advisor stepped forward cautiously. Your Highness, the ritual must be concluded. Prolonged exposure carries risks.
No.
The word was soft, but it cut through the room instantly. The advisor stopped. The princess didn't turn toward them. Her attention remained exactly where it had been since the moment the link began. On him. It is stable, she continued. There is no damage. That has never been tested under these conditions, the advisor pressed carefully. It is not damaging me. That is not the only concern. It is not damaging him. Silence followed, because that was the real issue. It never worked both ways. Someone always broke. But right now, neither of them had. The human shifted awkwardly. So, just to check, am I in trouble? No one answered him, which somehow made it worse. This is definitely the part where I find out I violated some ancient law. I knew it. I absolutely knew it. I'm going to be the first human to accidentally offend an entire empire by holding hands wrong. You have not offended anyone, the princess said calmly. He stared at her. You're doing it again. Yes.
I don't know how I feel about that.
You feel uncertain. I mean, yeah, but that's not helping. A faint smile touched her expression again. And this time it stayed. She shifted her stance slightly, still holding his hand, still connected, but now more grounded, more present in her own body than she had been at the start. This is the first time, she said quietly, more to herself than to anyone else, that it has been quiet. The court reacted immediately. Quiet, someone echoed. That is not possible. Her Highness experiences amplified perception. I know what I experience, she interrupted. And then, after a brief pause, she added, he is not quiet. The human blinked. Hey. But he does not overwhelm me. That silenced them again. Because that was the part no one could explain. She turned her face slightly toward him, her expression softer now, more open than it had been at any point during the ceremony. You do not control your thoughts, she said. Correct. You do not attempt to shape them. Also correct. You do not hide anything. He hesitated. I mean, I would if I could. Another pause. There are definitely things I would hide. She almost laughed again. And then, without warning, she spoke one of them aloud. You are currently thinking about how strange it is that my hand feels nice. The human made a sound that could only be described as a full system failure. Okay, wow. Why would you say that out loud? The reaction rippled through the court instantly. Shock, confusion, and something dangerously close to offense. But the princess didn't react to them. She was watching him, feeling him, experiencing the sudden spike of embarrassment, the chaotic attempt to recover, the immediate spiral of thoughts trying to justify, deny, or escape what had just been exposed. It was incredible. You are honest, she said simply. I didn't choose to be. And yet you are. He groaned quietly. This is going to ruin my life, isn't it? She tilted her head again, considering that. Then, softly, no. And for the first time since he had stepped onto the platform, something in his thoughts shifted. Not chaotic, not frantic, just still. Oh. It wasn't a big realization. It wasn't dramatic, but it was real. And she felt it immediately. He wasn't afraid of her. Not in the way the others had been. Confused? Yes. Overwhelmed? Absolutely. But not afraid. And that changed everything. The court, however, was reaching its limit. This cannot continue, one of the senior nobles said sharply. Your Highness, this situation is destabilizing the selection process. There are protocols. I have made my selection. The words landed like a shockwave. Every voice stopped. Every movement froze. The human blinked. Wait, what? She didn't let go of his hand. Didn't break the link. Didn't hesitate. I choose him. The reaction was immediate. Outrage. Disbelief. Confusion. Voices rising over one another in a sudden, uncontrolled surge of protest. A human. He is untrained. This violates every standard. He is not suitable. He is not even prepared. He is not. He is mine. That ended it. Not because they agreed, but because of the way she said it. Not as a declaration of power, but as something far more dangerous. Certainty. The human looked at her, then at the court, then back at her again. I feel like I should say something, he muttered. Say something good. Say something smart. Say something that doesn't make this worse. I have no idea what's happening. A beat. But I think I'm okay with it. The silence that followed was absolute. And somewhere in the middle of it, the princess smiled. The silence that followed her declaration did not break all at once. It fractured. First came the whispers, sharp, disbelieving, spreading like cracks through glass. Then came the voices, louder, layered, rising over one another as the weight of what had just happened settled over the court. This is unacceptable. A human cannot fulfill the role. He lacks discipline, training, status. He lacks sense, someone added under their breath. The human heard that one. Rude. He immediately regretted thinking it. The princess didn't. A faint shift in her expression told him everything he needed to know. You heard that, didn't you? He muttered. Yes. I stand by my thought. That almost made her laugh again, but the moment demanded something steadier. The tension in the room was no longer uncertain. It was confrontational. A senior advisor stepped forward, their posture rigid with controlled urgency. Your Highness, with respect, the linking is not merely symbolic. It is a foundation of governance, stability, continuity. What you are proposing is already happening. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. She lifted her hand slightly, his hand still in hers, and for a moment, the entire room seemed to focus on that single point of contact. This bond is stable, she continued. It has not fractured. It has not caused harm. It has done what none of your qualified candidates could achieve. That does not mean it will last, the advisor pressed. Unstructured minds are volatile. Human cognition is different, she interrupted. The word settled heavily. Not wrong. Not inferior.
Different.
The human shifted slightly, acutely aware that he was now somehow the center of a political argument he absolutely did not understand.
Okay.
This is escalating. This is definitely escalating. Is there a way to politely leave a royal engagement? Probably not. Definitely not. I'm stuck here. I am completely stuck here. She felt that too. And instead of being overwhelmed by it, she leaned into it. Because even now, even under pressure, his thoughts didn't harden into control or calculation. They scattered. They moved. They refused to become something rigid. And that kept her steady. You fear instability, she said, addressing the court. But you misunderstand its nature. A noble scoffed quietly. Enlighten us.
She did.
When I link with your minds, she said, I am met with structure, precision, intent. Every thought placed carefully, every emotion filtered, every instinct restrained. There were nods. That was discipline. That was refinement. That structure does not give me clarity, she continued. It overwhelms me. It presses inward. It demands that I process everything at once, exactly as it is presented.
She paused.
But his mind does not do that. The human blinked. I feel like I'm being discussed like a science experiment. You are, she said. Great. A few nobles stiffened at that exchange, but she continued without acknowledging them. His thoughts do not stay in one place. They shift constantly. They interrupt each other. They dissolve before they can accumulate. She tightened her grip on his hand slightly. Not possessive, but grounding. That is why I can breathe. That word changed the tone of the room. Not control. Not power.
Breath.
For the first time, she said quietly, I am not drowning in another mind. No one interrupted her now, because there was something in her voice they had never heard before. Relief. The advisor hesitated. Even if that is true, it does not address the matter of compatibility over time. The strain, the unpredictability. Then observe it. She stepped forward, pulling him gently with her. The movement was small, but it drew every eye. We will demonstrate. The human's thoughts spiked immediately. Oh no. Oh no, no, no. Demonstrate what? Why are we demonstrating things? I don't want to demonstrate anything. I am not qualified for demonstrations. Relax, she said softly. I am actively failing to do that. I know. And then, she deepened the link again. Not abruptly. Not violently. Carefully. The connection expanded, and this time, she didn't just receive, she guided. For the first time, the court could see it. Not the thoughts themselves, but the effect. There was no scream. No collapse. No visible strain. Instead, there was balance. The human swayed slightly, eyes widening. Okay, this feels different. This definitely feels different. Is this supposed to feel like this? Why does it feel like I'm...
He paused.
Because for a moment, he wasn't just thinking. He was aware of her. Not her thoughts, not in the chaotic way she experienced his, but her presence.
Calm.
Focused. Vast, but no longer overwhelming. Oh, he breathed. The court leaned in. The princess held steady. This is what you feared, she said. A deeper link. A full connection. She looked toward them, not with eyes, but with certainty. Observe it. Seconds passed. Then more. Nothing broke. Nothing shattered. Nothing failed. Instead, something else happened. The human blinked again, slower this time. You're really quiet, he said softly. A faint murmur moved through the court. Quiet. The one thing she had never been. That is because you're not trying to control what you receive, she replied. I don't know how to do that. Exactly.
A pause.
I feel like I'm accidentally doing something right. You are. That did it. Not the demonstration. Not the explanation.
That.
Because there was no arrogance in it. No performance. Just truth. The advisor stepped back slightly, the resistance in their posture no longer as rigid as before. This is unprecedented. Yes. And you are certain?
She didn't hesitate.
Yes. The The human, still processing everything, looked between them. So, just to confirm, I'm not being executed? A long pause. No, the advisor admitted. That's great. That's a really good start. A few scattered reactions broke through the tension. Not quite laughter, but something close. The kind of response no one expected in a moment like this. The princess turned slightly toward him again. You are still thinking about leaving. Can you blame me?
No.
Are you going to let me? She considered that. Then gently.
No.
He exhaled.
Well.
Okay then. That answers that. But the panic wasn't there anymore.
The uncertainty. Yes.
The confusion. Definitely. But beneath it, something steadier. He looked at her, really looked this time, even if he didn't fully understand what he was seeing. You're serious about this? Yes. Another pause. You know I'm not important, right? You are to me. That hit harder than anything else had. And for once, his mind didn't immediately fill the silence. No jokes. No panic. No deflection. Just that. The court saw it, felt it, in the subtle shift of everything. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a mistake. This was a choice. And it worked. The advisor finally straightened, drawing in a slow breath. Then, the bond will be recognized. The words carried weight. Finality. Across the hall, reactions varied. Some resistant, some stunned, some quietly accepting what they could no longer deny. The princess didn't react to them.
She didn't need to.
She had what she wanted. And she still hadn't let go of his hand. The human glanced down at it, then back at her. So this is permanent, isn't it? Yes. And you can always hear my thoughts? Yes. He closed his eyes for a moment. A long moment. Then sighed. I am never going to have a private thought again. She smiled. And this time, she didn't hold it back. Correct. He opened his eyes again, already regretting several future thoughts he hadn't even had yet. This is going to be a problem. No, she said softly. And for the first time since the beginning of all this, he believed her. Even if, somewhere deep in his mind, a completely unrelated thought slipped through anyway. I really hope they have something like noodles. Her laughter echoed through the hall again.